the dusty heart of a small western town, whispers traveled faster than the wind, and children, innocent yet often cruel, repeated the words they overheard at home. Little Emma, a sweet golden-haired girl with bright blue eyes, carried the heavy burden of their taunts, for she had no father to walk her to school, no strong figure to lift her high on his shoulders, and no man to shield her mother from the sideways looks of judgmental townsfolk. Each day, as she skipped through the dirt road holding her mother's hand, she was met with sneers and laughter, children jeering, "She ain't got no pa," their cruel voices echoing in her small heart. Until one day Emma came home with tears streaming down her cheeks, her tiny voice trembling as she asked her mother, "Mama, why don't I have what the others do?" And her mother, Sarah, who had borne her pain in silence since her husband's passing, felt her chest tighten with sorrow, for she had fought to give Emma everything, working long hours, mending clothes, baking bread, and yet she could not shield her daughter from the wounds words left behind. It was on a Sunday, outside the wooden church that stood as the town's pride, when the cruelest laughter cut deeper than any knife, Emma sitting on the steps, clutching her doll as the other children mocked her again, their parents pretending not to hear, when suddenly the heavy sound of boots echoed against the wooden porch, and a tall cowboy, broad-shouldered, with a rugged beard and eyes sharp as the horizon, knelt down before her, his hat casting a shadow over his kind smile, and he held out his hand to her with such gentleness that the entire street fell silent, his voice carrying power yet warmth as he declared, "You have one now," and the townsfolk gasped. For this was Luke, the quiet rancher who lived beyond the river, a man known for his strength, his solitude, and the secrets of a heart no one had dared to touch. Sarah, standing nearby with her breath caught in her throat, felt the world slow as she watched Luke place his hand over Emma's small one, lifting her into his arms as if she were already his own, her tears drying as he whispered, "No child should ever feel alone," and for the first time, Emma smiled with the radiance of a girl who finally felt protected. The children who had mocked her fell silent, their laughter choked by the weight of the cowboy's presence, and even the adults shifted uneasily. Ashamed of the cruelty they had allowed to fester, Sarah stepped forward, her heart torn between gratitude and disbelief, whispering, "Luke, why would you—" But before she could finish, he met her gaze with a quiet conviction, saying, "Because I see a family where others see weakness, and I'll not stand by while this little girl is made to feel less than whole." And those words struck deeper than any sermon ever could. From that day, Luke walked beside Emma and Sarah, his boots marking a new path for their lives, carrying Emma on his shoulders, teaching her to ride horses, showing her the strength of a father's love even if it wasn't by blood but by choice. And in the evenings he would sit with Sarah by the fire, speaking softly of his dreams, of the loneliness he had buried beneath the stars, and of the hope he saw when he looked at her. As weeks turned into months, the town no longer whispered with scorn but with awe, watching how a man who had once been a lone rider became a shield, a father and a partner, and how Sarah's eyes shone with a happiness that had long been stolen from her. Emma, no longer mocked, walked proudly with Luke's hand in hers, her chin lifted high, for she knew she was cherished, and the same children who had once teased her now envied her strength. The tale spread across the valley like wildfire, a reminder that family is not always born in blood but forged in love, and that sometimes a cowboy's greatest courage is not in facing outlaws or storms, but in kneeling before a child and choosing to be the father she needed. So, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, if you believe in love that heals, in kindness that transforms, and in courage that chooses family above all, make sure to subscribe to this channel, because more powerful stories like this one await you here. Stories that inspire, stories that heal, and stories that remind us all that hope can ride in on the back of the unlikeliest cowboy. The weeks that followed, Luke's bold declaration brought a transformation that neither Sarah nor Emma could have imagined. For the cowboy who had once been known as a man of few words and solitary, rides now filled their lives with steady presence, laughter, and protection. Each morning, Emma would race to the door at the sound of his horse's hooves, her face lighting up as she called, "Papa Luke," a name she had given him without hesitation. And though Sarah's heart clenched at first, fearing he might not accept such a title, Luke only smiled, lifting the child high in the air and saying, "That's the finest name I've ever been called." Together they spent afternoons at his ranch, where Luke taught Emma to brush the horses and feed the chickens, always patient with her small mistakes. And Sarah, watching from the porch, felt a warmth stirring within her, a hope she had buried long ago when she thought her life would be nothing more than survival. Yet with that hope came fear, for she wondered how long Luke's promise would last, if the whispers of the town or the weight of his own solitude might drive him away. But Luke, sensing her doubts, would look at her with a steady gaze that silenced every storm in her heart, reminding her without words that he was not a man to walk away from what he had claimed as his own. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills and painted the sky in hues of fire, Luke sat with Emma on his knee and Sarah at his side, his voice low yet firm as he said,